Hi, thank you. I'm going to do a short, hopefully practical talk on how I've taught my Rails application to perform its own code audits on itself using some AI prompts. And I've been finding this helpful, and I hope you guys get something out of this as well. So a little background about me. I'm Chuck Blake. I've worked at a number of technology companies over my career, and I've done everything from hands-on keyboard coding to managing development teams, as well as handling things like operations and marketing. Currently, I am CTO of a company called Leah, and we're building tools that help wealth management firms extract data from documents, and then we build workflows to push that data into other systems that they need to get that data in, like CRMs and planning tools. And we recently closed a seed round. Woo! And, oh, thank you. And yeah, that's how I feel too. And we're actually hiring our first full-time employee, and I'll talk a little bit more about that position later. These slides all have a QR code on the top where I have some resources about myself and Leah and some stuff about the talk here today. So if you're interested, just check that out. Okay, cool. Why did I need this? So I'm a solo developer. We're a two-person company. My co-founder's not technical, so I'm actually doing all the coding, and I wanted to get a second set of eyes on the stuff that I'm building to be able to sort of catch things that I'm not missing, that I might miss. And also, I find it's like tempting to get sort of bogged, get into the groove of like getting things shipped out, features in the product, and not paying attention to the system health, and are you building something that's maintainable? So I wanted that kind of like check on myself, and to make sure that small issues don't become snowballed into bigger problems. So the goal here was I wanted to build a consistent, repeatable process that was able to check my application's health. I wanted to catch these issues before they impacted my users. I also wanted a way to make sure that I was tracking improvements over time, and I had a way to refer back to these. And I wanted to make sure that this wasn't just like some external process, that it was really part of my own workflow, that was part of like my backlog process and my sprint process. And I wanted it to be able to attack any kind of dimension of my code quality, infrastructure, database stuff, test coverage, etc. So again, the idea here is like, what if I could use some LLMs, create some prompts that give my system repeatable instructions, pair that with the context of my code base, and be able to kind of run these automatically and produce output reports that I could easily surface in my user interface, and that way I could save lots of time doing these things. Cool. A little bit about how this is set up in my system. So each of the reviews that I run have a couple components. So there's an LLM prompt that just orchestrates all the work. I have a notes file where I could drop any context or other details that I want to make sure are surfaced in the report that aren't readily apparent in my code base. And then there's also a template file that describes what the final report should look like that the LLM does the work of filling out. And again, the final output here is a markdown report that I version and I surface directly in my user interface. So this is a little bit about what and all this stuff's, a bunch of this stuff's up on that QR code if you guys want to check it out too. But so the way I have it set up, I keep my prompts in my lib folder, and I have a bunch of the other reference files, the notes files and the templates files in my docs folder. So you can see here I have like an integrations prompt, and I also have an integrations folder in the documents with the notes in the template file. Here's a little sample of my system review prompt, and I've condensed this down a little bit to try to fit it on the screen a little bit better. But some things that I kind of make sure I have in all of my prompts is that something to avoid hallucinations. Here I say base all findings only on actual code analysis, and I provide a notes file. I'm also adding some language to make sure that I have traceability for all the claims that are in the report. And in addition to making sure that the LLM has all the context it needs about where to get these reference files and things like that. Here's kind of like what part of the final output looks like. This is like, I call it the command center. I didn't steal that from Scott. And it's just like a simple page where it outputs like all the different reviews that I might want to look at. And the way I did this is I could just like register another review right in this array that's in my index controller here. And it's just like really easy. All I got to do is like build that prompt, build a template, build the notes file, and then register it here, give it a run, and all of a sudden it's like surfaced automatically in my user interface. So I started with like a system review prompt, which is like kind of like a giant kind of overarching, like look at everything about my system and try to report back to me. And here's like an output of like one of the reports. It gives me a little summary and it's telling me my system's stable and improving. Happy about that. And it also outlines some short-term priorities. And these are the kinds of things that I'm looking for to see when I'm doing my backlog grooming and thinking about what I want to work on next and kind of picking things off of this to see what I want to be working on. And here's another piece of that system review report, and it has a bunch of different sections. So this is like just diving into the database section, and all of them kind of follow the same kind of template. I have like since last review findings and recommendations, and again, it's giving me like clear, actionable ideas about like what might be wrong with my code and some things that I might want to address. Cool. So yeah, so in the real world, this has been working out pretty well for me. I run these reviews at the beginning of my sprint process. I review them for like work that I might want to do. I add it to like my backlog or the current sprint, or ignore it and kind of like work from there. But already it's been able to sort of uncover a bunch of different things, not necessarily stuff that I wouldn't have addressed on my own, but it's like nice to have that other sort of set of eyes or that other person reminding you that you should be like working on these things. I've also shared the prompts with a CTO friend of mine, and he ran it and got a lot of use out of it. The things he was telling me that it surfaced a lot of fresh ideas and things that he didn't think about, and it also kind of prompted him to take like immediate action on the stuff that he was working on. And again, I think the idea that if you have this like external report that's like telling you should be working on these things, it's a little bit more of a motivator than if you were just like going through the code yourself and saying like, oh, I should work on this or I should work on that. It's kind of, it gives that kind of external validation. Cool, so what's working and what I'm going to be working on next here. So, definitely a win for me is this like structured process. I like that the way that I have the file set up, how it's like easy for me to conjure a new one of these up or test something out. It just takes kind of minutes to get it up and running and kind of make use of it. I'm always tweaking the prompts. After I do one of these runs to build one of these reports, like 9 times out of 10, I am like seeing something in the report that I didn't like or wanted to tweak, or something else that I wanted to uncover. So I'm always back in and kind of tweaking the prompts and tweaking the reports to kind of make sure that they're aligned with what I want to get. And I think the other thing about like that I'm surfacing the report in the app is like a big win for me, because I find like sometimes when you're working like in a chat window, you kind of like lose the chat, or you can kind of go back through the chat history. But I like having that like artifact of the run of this review to be able to like review either by like a human, or you could use it for context in like an LLM prompt down the road. And moving forward from this, the next things I'm going to be looking at are to do more specific reviews. Like I mentioned, I started with this like overarching system review, but I want to kind of build like more individual ones that could be like super tailored to like exactly what I want to do. I want to build like a security review, an integrations review, that kind of thing. And with the prompts, I find that boring works better. I think I tend to like over-engineer the prompts a lot of times. So I'm kind of adding a lot of language and a lot of things, and over time they kind of start doing weird things. And I find that like less words, kind of cleaner and more boring prompts seem to work better than the more complicated ones. And I'm a big Cursor fan. And I use the linear MCP to help with like my background grooming and linear, and I think that would be like an interesting place to kind of dovetail this process into that process, where I could just like surface some of these ideas and then like pump them directly into linear and kind of manage that stuff on that front. Cool. Yeah, if you guys want to do something like this, again, grab the code samples up there, or you can hit me up and ask me some questions. But I think picking something to focus on is probably a good idea. Using real inputs from your code base. The code has like all of the context that this thing needs to kind of function, and so I think like pointing in that direction is super helpful. I keep all my prompts in version control. There's kind of a couple different places in Cursor where you could put prompts, but I kind of abandoned all that and just started putting things directly in my code base, which I think is helpful. And again, I think having the output as an actual artifact file is like super helpful, not just a chat that can kind of disappear on you. Right on. So just back to Leah. So again, I'm with the company called Leah. We're a 2-person startup right now, but we're hiring our first full-time employee role. It's going to be a founding engineer. So this person's going to have a lot of say in like shaping the product and how we're going to build it sort of going forward. There's like a huge scope. There's a lot of surface area in the application. We're using AI to extract data from documents. We're building workflows. We have front end, back end. We have an API. So there's a lot of like interesting things to work on there. And you get to work with me. So that's a plus. Cool. So that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. And thank you.